Yay.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Amy Award event. I'm just going to highlight myself just for a moment. Okay, welcome. Uh, I want to apologize in advance. The reminder email didn't send. I don't know why. So I just sent it out now for those people who were looking for a link. I'd like to give people an extra few minutes to join. Technology is a mysterious thing. It's sitting there saying scheduled. I don't know. I don't know why it's not going. Oh, hi, Christine from Ottawa. For those of you, there are a lot of Canadians in the audience. I don't need to tell you, we're all a bit sleep deprived today. But for those of you who are not in Canada, I can apologize for all the Canadians in the room, all of us who are a bit bleary-eyed because we had an election last night that went way into the night, and it was very exciting. So, but I think we all went to bed very late and then woke up very early to check because it was a bit of a nail biter. So anyway, yeah, I might be repeating myself and going cross-eyed occasionally, but I'll do my best to stay present and awake. And I'm really excited about this event. I will just be very okay. Here we go. Yeah, I all right. We're one of our guests, our one of our guests was having audio issues. So in our little trial, so it's all going to be a bit of an experiment, but I hope that you're flexible and willing to take the Amy Award adventure with me. Okay, there are still a few people arriving, but I'll just get started. So this event is somewhat facetiously called How to Win the Amy Award. Obviously, we're not giving any direct clues, and we can't possibly tell people how to win the Amy Award because that is not up to any of us. The way this works, so I know this audience is comprised of two groups. One is the Momentum audience. So these are people who know all about the Amy Award, but the other people in the room are people who were in our January cohort. In other words, who were taking the course for the first time and just finished the course. So for those people, the Amy Award is probably relatively new. So Momentum people, if you will just excuse me for the repetition, I'm just going to give a very quick overview of what the award is. So Amy MacRae was someone who came to a retreat that I did in France in 2019. And she was a spectacular writer and this sparkling human being. And she worked on some short pieces of memoir while she was in France and submitted one of those pieces to the CBC Literary Awards, which are the most competitive contest for short works of memoir in this country. And she ended up being shortlisted. She was one of 5 stories out of thousands of submissions. And the CBC contacted me to well, when she ended up on the long list, she had left me as a contact person for whatever reason, I don't know. And they were contacting me because they could not get in touch with Amy to tell her she was a finalist because very sadly, she had died only months before of ovarian cancer at the age of 35. And I was really moved by I had worked with her on this winning story. It was so moving to me and it meant so much to me, that whole experience. And so I just had this idea one day that I was going to create a contest in her honor for the kind of writing that she was doing. And this is how the Amy MacRae Award was born. And it went from idea to reality so fast. I just had some great people working with me, among them one of the people you're going to be meeting today, who helped just bring this to a reality. As I said, so quickly, it was almost like a bit of a magic trick. And it's now in its 5th year. And so this contest is for works of memoir 2,000 words or fewer. So it's for short works of memoir. And we get hundreds of submissions every year. Each piece, so just to tell you a bit about how the contest works, I think it's helpful in prefacing this event, just so you understand the mechanics of it. So every story is read by 2 readers, and I choose some of the readers are returning for a subsequent year, but I always mix the readers up. I always invite fresh people in so that there's just a fresh set of eyes on stories, and so that we're not just sort of looking for the same thing year after year. And so each story is read by two people, and those people are these are the first readers, they're called. And so they either give the story a yes meaning this story has the potential to be a finalist, or a no. And if a story gets a yes from two readers, it automatically goes on to our long list. Mostly that doesn't happen, which is interesting. And I will come back to this at the end of this, talking about just contests and, preferences, and why contests are imperfect, but why they're also still worth, submitting to, I think. And so many writers feel that way. So if a story gets one yes and one no, it gets sent to a third reader. And so now you have three sets of eyes on it. And if among those three sets of eyes, you get two readers saying, yes, this story has has finalist potential, it goes on the long list. So once we have a long list of about, generally, it's weird, actually. Every year, it has been approximately 25, 30 stories on the long list. It's just always worked out that way. We didn't plan it. It just always works out that way, that about 20 or 30 stories float to the top. And those stories are handed to the judge. And the judge is different every year. And this year, our judge is Sharon Butala, who is, might be familiar to many of you for a memoir that she wrote now. Oh my, it's probably 30 years ago, but it was one of the first of its kind. It was called The Perfection of the Morning. And it was this contemplative memoir about moving to the country. She lived in Saskatoon, in a province in Canada, central Canada, and well, still does, but moving to the countryside and sort of finding herself in the land, walking the land and discovering the land. And it's a beautiful book. And that was what introduced me to Sharon Butala. Since then, she's also a fiction writer. She's won the Governor General's Award. She's published many, many, many things, both books and articles and stories and so on. But she's also been writing recently about aging. And I thought that was, this contest is open to everybody. It's open to all genders, all ages, all around the world. But I am the first to say it is largely, we have this beautiful audience of women who are in the sterling years of their lives, I will call them. And I thought it would be wonderful to invite a judge who is specifically sitting in material that most contests, I would say, don't have that focus. Most contests don't have the audience submitting that we do. I think we're unique in that regard, and I wanted to honor that. So it's not that, if you're a young man submitting work, it's not that your work will get, your work will be judged on its merit. And that is the one thing that I've been really clear about from the beginning with both the readers and the judges, is this is not a political contest. I'm not interested in what's trendy, what's topical, what ticks all the boxes. I'm only interested in awarding good writing. That's it. That's the sole criterion. And of course, good writing means something different to every person, and we still have preferences. But what that means is we're not prioritizing certain stories based on their subject matter, for example. So I think that's important. It doesn't matter whether you're writing about soup, toenails, or last night's election, your work will be read with an equal eye. Okay, so the contest is open now. You can submit your stories anytime, but the contest deadline is June 30th. And I love, I don't know why, I find it so sweet that every year, 95% of the submissions come on the last day. We writers are all the same. We need a deadline. And as soon as we have a deadline, we're motivated and we wait until the last minute. Well, because we can tweak and tweak and tweak and tweak. And this is partly what we're going to talk about at today's event, because the reason I called it How to Win the Amy Award is something I think quite unusual happened last year. So last year was the 4th year of the contest. And both our runner-up and our winner, whom you're about to meet, had submitted their stories to a previous contest, and they were not even longlisted. Now, what's really interesting is one person just submitted the story as it was, but thought, well, she's going to tell the story. She just submitted the same story, and it was not only was it longlisted, it became the runner-up. Same story. So, but different readers, different judge. So this is intended to be inspiring to those of you who've submitted in the past. I mean, it's intended to be inspiring for everybody. But let's say you've submitted to the contest in the past and you don't get longlisted. It is far, 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 far too easy to say, oh, I'm a terrible writer. I should never have done that. What was I thinking? I better stop writing. No, we whack ourselves to death with all of these criticisms that come so quickly when we don't win or when our writing isn't recognized. And I say this as someone who's experienced that very thing. I understand how painful it is and how easy it is to say, well, I'm not going to do this anymore. And I'm not cut out for this. So one of the things I would like to do, so I'm going to invite now Jane Usher. Okay, I'm going to pin you, and I think I have to pin myself so that we can have a conversation. Okay, there we go. Jane, welcome. Jane was our 2024 runner-up for the Amy Award contest. Jane, would you start by just telling people, well, your version of the story that I gave a short version of, including what the story was about and how you worked on it? You know, was it something that had been in your drawer for 10 years? Was this a new idea? Can you just introduce the story a bit?
Yeah, I'll just back it up by saying the first time that I submitted it, I was on the deadline. I was on the very last day because I tweaked and I tweaked and I tweaked and I tweaked some more. And then, crickets, nothing happened. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to try again. So I did nothing to it. I might have found a stray apostrophe or something, but it was basically the same thing. The story is a story about the day that my mother died when I was a little girl, and it was a sudden, unexpected death. And it's my recollection of that. And I'd probably written the draft for it, I don't know, 15 years ago, and, into the drawer with all the other stuff. And then when I learned about the Amy Award and having taken your course that previous year, then I thought, well, I'm going to get brave here, and I'm going to give this a shot. So I pulled out the draft and I went, you know what, this isn't half bad. And I was sort of surprising myself. And then I started, fiddling with it. And I was remembering more things. The more that I went in, I thought, oh yeah, that whole part of that, I forgot about that happening. Because when you dive into those memories, it's amazing what the surfaces. I even made the mistake of talking to my other siblings, because there were 4 of us. And it's like that old thing when everybody's in the room with the same event and everybody has a different memory of it. So it was like, okay, well, that's not helpful. So I'm taking my literary privilege here. Thank you very much. Thanks for playing. So there was some of that went on. And then I sent it out to my 2 trusty, what is the word that Stephen King used for that? My constant readers. So I had one in Halifax, I had one in Revelstoke, and said, okay, I'm wondering about, and both of them nailed anything that I had a little bit of a niggle about, because they know me and they're my besties. So
do you remember any specifics about what it is that they saw and what they noticed that you hadn't?
Oh gosh, I haven't thought about this in a year.
I don't want to put you on the spot then. I'll ask a different question, which is that I know you're also an editor. And so you bring an editorial eye to your own work. Can you talk about, so you had this piece in your drawer, what took it from rough draft to story? What are the things you're looking for, both as a writer and an editor, to polish a piece and prepare it for submission?
Well, the first thing I knew, because I wear both hats, the first thing I knew was that I needed somebody with fresh eyes and somebody at that top level of the whole process of editing, which is the the developmental piece are things in the right order? Is it making sense? Is your thesis clear? All of those things you do at a structural level. And then there would be the stylistic level with, well, maybe that should be over here and I'm not quite sure. So I sent it to 2 editors right after I was happy with it. And they each came back with comments that were absolutely appropriate and absolute game changers. And they were little tiny things. It wasn't like, well, your story sucks, you should start over. It wasn't like that at all. So it was just all these little tiny helpful things, which is why when I resubmitted it, I'm like, Matt, we'll just throw it in and see what happens this time.
Okay, that's great. I love that you just threw it in. I mean, threw it back in. How did you have the confidence to do that? Because how did you not say, oh, I guess this is a bad story?
Feedback from my trusted constant readers that said, this is a damn good story. There will be a different judge next year. There will be different readers, and just, give it a try and see what happens. And what happened was completely, I had absolutely, I did it and let it go. I didn't think about it at all. It was just like, okay. So I was totally shocked when I made the long list, and I was shocked again when I made the short list. And then when I found out that I had been the runner up, I was actually at a family gathering. One of my nieces was getting married on Gabriola Island, and the whole clan was there. So I got to celebrate with everybody. It was so cool.
Okay, that's great. Okay, thank you, Jane. For those people who would like to read Jane's story, if you go on the website amyaward.com, there is a link to both Jane's story, and which was the runner-up story, and Anna's. And I'm about to thank you so much, Jane, for that little summary.
One little quick finishing up thing. I have already submitted for the next Amy.
Oh, you have?
Yes, I have. I'm not waiting till the last minute.
Way ahead of the deadline. Okay.
Thank you.
That's hilarious. Okay, marvelous. All right, thank you so much, Jane. Okay, so that is that's one story. So someone has something, they're confident about it significantly. They sent it out to 2 trusted readers, got feedback, and then had enough faith in it to, I think you said when we were chatting beforehand, you might have changed a comma or a semicolon or something. I mean, so minor, and realized, no, it's in good shape. I'm gonna submit it again. Okay, so I now want to invite our winner from last year, Anna. Okay, now Anna, we were having audio issues. Do you mind just speaking so that we can make sure you're...
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can. Hooray!
Yes. Oh, good. Okay, phew. I've moved over to my phone.
Okay, fantastic. All right.
My brand new computer won't let me get on Zoom, but there you go.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
so go ahead.
no, just welcome. Where are you
Thank
coming from? I don't know. I know
I'm
Jane,
in Ottawa.
you're in Ottawa. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Wow.
Yeah.
So, yeah, very exciting place to be.
Center of things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also a little hungover from not having slept much.
Yeah. I don't think anyone in this country.
No. Yeah, so a lot of similarities to what Jane just shared. I was nodding my head almost all of the time. So I probably wrote a version of this, 15 years ago. And at least 15 years ago. And I used pieces of it in short stories, in vignettes. And then I decided to turn it into an essay a number of years ago, submitted it, didn't work. And to be honest, I knew why it wasn't working. I'm very lucky. I have a fantastic writing group that I'm a part of where, the members are willing to do what we call deep dive feedback, where we talk about the writing. We don't get into talking about the story. I shared it with them. And one of the members in that group was also actually longlisted for this contest. And I was so inspired by her because I knew she had been working on her piece for a number of years. So I took it back. And the 3 things that I did was, the first was I wanted to include in the piece who I might have been at a time when I didn't have the guts to be that person.
Wow.
I wanted to also imagine what I didn't know and to include that. So I did all of that. and I was really happy with my draft. I gave it to, you know, my readers who I trust, and they gave it back. They gave me some good feedback, and then I'm very lucky. I have somebody who she's an editor who I pay, and I recommend everybody do this. I think it's such an important thing to do because I'm kind of a little bit scared of her because she doesn't hold back, and that's exactly what I want. So she sent it back and she gave me some great feedback, but she asked me one question, and that is, there's something missing here. What's this really about?
Wow.
And I knew that when I submitted it to her, but it had taken me a long time to get to that moment where I was ready to include that. And when I did, the piece came together. It's one line. It's just
wow. Okay, I love this. Yes.
so
Actually.
really I think a lot of it also had to do with coming to a point in my own life where I was willing to look back at who I was at a certain time and to forgive that person and realize it's okay. Yeah.
Oh, Anna,
So
that's a beautiful summary of that process.
yeah. Oh, and the only other thing I would love that I would like to add is that I really liked my story, and like Jane, like I think it's so important. You know, I really, really liked it for me, and I think that that's important.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah.
So you're not writing it for this, yeah, that you're primarily writing it for yourself.
Yeah. That last draft, I realized once I got that line in that, yeah, I did it, and I was happy with it.
Yeah, super. Okay, I have a question about just that. You don't have to share it, but I'm so curious to know, what was that line? What was that missing piece that you're only ready to add at the end? Are you comfortable sharing that?
But sure. Yeah. I mean, I'm 62 now. I was like a little girl then, but it was a moment where I chose, where I willfully ignored my grandmother. Right. The piece is about, yeah. So where I willfully ignored her, and I realized that I had carried that shame with me all my life.
Mhm.
And it was when I included it, the piece changed.
Okay, that's beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. And it's such a beautiful piece. They both are. I just encourage everyone to, with now having heard this, to go back. I'm sure you will read them with fresh eyes and look for these clues that both writers have given about what, what the meaningful aspects of the story were and what small changes. I also love that you highlight that we're not talking about massive cuts, starting again, tearing everything apart. Sometimes those little shapes and tweaks, it's like something finally settles when we make these, small changes, that it doesn't necessarily have to be something large. Was there a big rewrite in your process from the first time you submitted it to the second, or was it a series of smaller?
Probably a series of smaller, but I did really want, like, I wanted to challenge myself to really imagine what I could have done had I been there, and to include what we don't know as part of what we know.
Beautiful.
And because I imagined myself as someone who was so much stronger, I think it came in direct contrast with what I actually did.
I love that.
Yeah, so that was what I wanted to I wanted to really like hit that note. And so, yeah, how do you include what you don't know, right? Which is so often as interesting as what you do know.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
last question. You mentioned that you were lucky to have a writing group that focuses on the writing and not the story. And I so appreciate what you mean by that, but I would love for you to explain that to people.
I mean, sometimes we do, but generally, so the understanding is that we arrive with a piece of writing, and that we talk about what the writer has done to make that piece engaging. Of course, it can slip into a story. It's hard not to, but we really focus on doing that.
Fantastic.
Because otherwise it's yeah, and there's room for writing groups where you talk about the stories as well, but that isn't the point for this particular group. Absolutely not. Yeah.
Yeah, and that can be helpful for people who are setting up writing partnerships and writing groups.
Yeah.
We talk about this in the how to give helpful feedback, that we're not actually interested in the content of the story.
No.
That's really, we're looking at the how can we, what's the best way of shaping and crafting this story. Sometimes it does, as you said, sometimes it does involve an excavation of what was happening for you here or what was happening in the larger context, but that we can get writing groups and writing partnerships can get a bit lost in, let's talk about, they delve into the subject matter and the
Yeah.
craft can get lost. So I just
Yeah.
wanted to clarify that because I thought that was
Yeah.
a really good point.
And also why I think it's if you can find an editor who you trust and who you're a little bit scared of, honestly, I am so grateful for Susan because I have to work harder knowing that she's going to read it.
Right. Okay. And that's the perfect segue now. Thank you
Yeah.
so much, Anna. Thank you. Thank you. And congratulations again. Okay. This brings me a marvelous segue to our last guest here, who is Lori Goff. Now, Lori is familiar to some of you because Lori has been the associate editor of Memoir Writing Inc. for years now, and she has worked with a startling number of people on the who submit to the Amy Award, but who specifically, I mean, every year on the short list, Lori looks and thinks, yep. You've worked with so many. Now, I want to immediately say, working with Lori does not guarantee that you're going to get on a list. I just want to, disclaimer, formal disclaimer. However, just as Anna said, and Jane has said, and so many writers, it can be such a tremendous, tremendous boon to work with a trusted editor. And I'm going to read Lori's bio in a second, just so you have a sense of the breadth of her work. So Lori is also, she's a journalist and award-winning author in her own right. She's published 3 memoirs by Penguin and Random House. Over 20 of her stories have been anthologized in literary travel books, and her books have been translated into several languages. She's been a travel columnist for the Globe and Mail and has written for The Guardian, the LA Times, Maclean's, The Walrus, USA Today, Salon.com, and Canadian Geographic. And she's been editing memoirs for 15 years. So she brings a lot of experience to the table, both as a reader and as an editor. Now, I've asked Lori, some of you were here at this event last year, and Lori went through some of the things that you commonly see, what you watch for, what you particularly look at. So I'm just going to turn it over to you to carry us into this next segment of the event. And I'm going to disappear. I'm going to unpin myself. Welcome, Lori Goff, who's calling in from
Wakefield, Quebec.
Wakefield, Quebec, not far from Ottawa. Okay.
That's right. That's right.
Okay,
And I'm one of those tired Canadians.
Yeah.
Stayed up till 2 a.m. And I thought that's hilarious that so many of us are experiencing the same thing today.
Okay, welcome.
Thanks. And that was really interesting to hear the Jane and Anna, your stories. And a lot of it resonated with me, and maybe you'll see why. So I love editing. I'm really interested in what it is that makes a good story. I like figuring out how to make a piece of writing better. Sometimes it's like a puzzle. What if this went here and this went here instead? What if you scrap the whole first paragraph? It can be really fun trying to work with someone, or, not trying to work with someone, but working with someone, trying to shape and craft a piece so it's the best that it can be. So as Alison said, I've worked on these Amy Award submissions for the past 4 years, every year that this contest has been running. And when the long and short lists come out, I always think, oh, that's very familiar. Most of these stories I recognize. These were stories written by people who had taken that extra step of having them professionally edited, and it paid off for them. So these stories usually were very well written before they were submitted to me, but in every case I found something or a few things, not just the odd punctuation error, but a word that sounded clunky, or a sentence that was too long and would have been better in 2 short sentences, or a cliche, or I'd realized the story was stronger without a certain paragraph, or a certain sentence that might have over-explained something. I see a lot of over-explaining. I might talk about that, or I'd suggest that instead of explaining something, to instead write a short scene to illustrate the same thing, which would make the whole piece more powerful. Or I might say this story actually seems to be more about your father or your mother and their story than about you and your own story. I'd say, is that what you want? And sometimes it comes back completely differently after I ask that question. So after all of this, the writer works on the story some more and sends it to me again for the final edit. And when I see it the second time, I think, okay, now the story is really, really singing and ready to submit. We really don't see our own writing well, and we definitely don't usually see our own mistakes. Our mind just fills in the missing word or those punctuation errors. And if you've worked on a piece a lot, you actually can't be objective about it anymore. It's really hard to be objective about your own writing. So you need that fresh set of eyes. I was at a writers' conference and several years ago, and Margaret Atwood was giving a talk, and she told the audience that she never sends anything out into the world without first sending it to this woman in England, this editor who she hires privately, and she's trusted this woman for 45 years or something like that. So this woman was an independent editor, and it was very shocking to the audience. We just assumed that Margaret Atwood wouldn't need that. Of course, she would have her editors at her publishers, but this is just for everything else that she sends before she even sends it to her publisher, or even letters to the Globe and Mail. She was just really trying to reiterate that she's sort of afraid to send anything out into the world without checking with this woman. First off, she really trusts this woman, so that was interesting. So I have identified 5 common issues that I come across every single year in all these editing submissions and for the Amy Awards, plus in other editing that I do. And I'll go through these, and please feel free, Alison, to interject if I'm going on too long. Because yeah, we don't have the full, I'll just interrupt me if I'm going on too long.
Okay, and I will list these in the chat for people as you're going.
Okay, great. Okay, so the first one, number 1, is people do far too much telling rather than showing. I'm sure that you learned this in Alison's class. That would be a big lesson. But still, this is the number 1 rule of writing, and I know you've heard it, but it's amazing how often I get something and it's almost all telling. And it really takes practice to learn how to show rather than tell. Writing is hard work, of course, it's a craft. And of course, you can't show all the time or your story would never end. There are times when you really just you have to tell something, you have to explain something. But overall, you need to show a lot more, or most people need to show a lot more. So show don't tell is a writing technique where the story and characters are related through sensory details and actions rather than pure exposition. So it fosters a much more immersive experience for the reader. It fully engages them, allowing them to be in the room with the characters rather than being left on the outside. So when you tell rather than show, you inform your readers of information rather than allowing them to deduce anything for themselves and feel anything for themselves. Showing really paints a picture in the reader's mind. So I'll just give a few examples. Instead of saying Ted is mad, show how Ted is mad. Ted stormed into the living room and threw a wet sock at his Aunt Trudy. Or instead of saying he was generous, confident, and likable, that's telling, show he threw he threw down $5 for the cup of coffee, winked at the waiter, and walked out, his arms swinging. So look at the difference between these 2 sentences. Let's see if you can hear them. The woman drove her car into town, and this one, Helena drove her Pontiac Firebird to Vegas. Those small details make all the difference to the story. You're evoking something in the reader's mind. You can show how you feel by describing what's happening physically in your body. Instead of saying you're nervous, which is telling, what is happening in your stomach to your nerve endings, your heart rate, your pulse? Are you breaking into a sweat? What panicky thoughts are ricocheting around your head? Are you feeling paranoid? Instead of telling us you're feeling paranoid, describe who you think is staring at you. You can show how you're feeling by describing the setting around you. Rather than saying, I felt lonely, you could describe your surroundings seeming lonely to you. Maybe a street full of unsmiling people staring blankly ahead, or an amusement park where everyone but you was laughing and holding hands with someone else. You get across the feeling of the narrator's loneliness without coming out and saying it. You don't ever need to use the word lonely. It just comes out with your describing, with your description. Um, and showing is about using concrete details. So when you write with detail, it makes your writing jump off the page. The more specific you are in your details, the more the readers can visualize it. So instead of being general and vague, be specific. Don't just say fruit, say overripe mangoes or pomegranate, or what kind of tree was in your front yard when you were a kid? What kind of birds did you hear singing outside your window? What was the shape of that woman's dress? Or what was the shape of her glasses? Were they cat-eye glasses? Readers really need to see this vivid picture in their minds. And in fact, this is interesting. I don't know if I've said this before. Brain scientists have come up with a lot of research on something called mirror neurons. And so they hook people up to electrodes, and they found that when people are physically presented with actual food in front of them, certain parts of their brain light up. And then when they read a passage in a story where the author is describing food in detail, or a meal in detail, those same parts of the brain light up. So they also found that when people are introduced to actual people in a room, and the electrodes show that certain parts of their brain are lit up, lighting up, and then those people leave, and then half an hour later these people are reading a story where characters are being described. Those same parts of the brain light up. So it's as if your brain doesn't really know the difference. So when you write about people and things with detail, you're allowing the reader the experience of actually feeling that they're there. Um, so and also watch adverbs and adjectives. Often they weaken writing. Of course, you can use adjectives. You do need adjectives once in a while, but they have to be specific. So if you say she dressed beautifully, what does that mean? Or the mountainside was beautiful. Or the city was incredible. That's all very weak and vague. You have to describe people and places in your own words, not using general overused adjectives or cliches, but real, concrete, original sensory detail. So I think that's probably enough about show, don't tell. I'm sure that.
Oh, sorry. Okay, so that last one was 1A, one rather than 2. Beware of overusing adverbs. It was 1A.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. I'm still on 1, but now I'm about to go on to 2.
Okay. All right.
Oh, I could also just add, it's important to appeal to readers' senses, all the senses, not just sight, but sound, smell, taste, and touch. And you probably talk about that too in your writing. Okay, number
In
2.
fact, before we go on, I would just like to say to people there is a teaching on show don't tell in your bonus offerings on your dashboard. If you go into bonus offerings, and I think it's under best of the live teachings or something, there's a whole 1-hour episode on show don't tell, if that concept is still mysterious to you or you want to go a bit deeper. Okay.
That's fantastic. That's really great. And also just reading. I assume all of you are big readers and you'll find that that's just what authors do. If you're stuck wondering how do authors do it? How do they show things, or how do they write a paragraph? Open up a book of any book, just about any novel or memoir, and you'll see that those authors are usually writing in scenes, and they're showing things in detail. They're describing things in detail.
And sorry,
Okay,
if I can add just one more thing before you go on to step 2.
sure.
Just that I think it was after last year, maybe the previous year's contest, I polled the readers and asked them what if they could name one thing that separated the stories that they gave a yes to, in other words, that they identified as being long list potential. If they could identify one thing, what would it be? And they all said a version of what you just said. Some said, well, I got lots of TED Talks. In other words, people telling us about this thing that happened, but so telling. but sometimes the distinguishing feature of a story that was ready to move on was that it was so beautifully shown. Just everything that you're talking about. Oh, I think you're frozen. Either that or you're very serious. Oh, Lori, are you there? Is she frozen for everyone else too? Yes. Okay. Well, fortunately, she's not doing it with your mouth is closed, which I think is great. Very fortunate, Lori, but just let me know when you're back. Okay, she seems to have dropped away completely. So, well, any questions so far while we're waiting for Lori to return? If you have questions, there will be time for questions at the end. And I would ask you to put them in the Q&A box rather than the chat. So if you hover over the bottom of your screen, one of the options is Q&A, or you might have to click on more and you'll see a Q&A box there. What I will say in Lori's absence is that, I mean, similar to what Anna said, we've had, Lori is a very kind, obviously, she's an extremely kind and sensitive person. She's very aware that people are submitting work in a, sometimes very vulnerable state about sensitive subject matter. She is also, however, an extremely discerning reader and, sometimes, a painfully honest editor in the best sense. I mean, she really will, she'll tell you what you need to hear, and that can be sometimes hard for people to get because they feel like their story's really close and they just want to sort of get the stamp of approval from Lori, and it'll come back with all sorts of comments. But she's very sensitive as well as being, very talented and a very incisive editor. So I don't see her anywhere in the Zoom room yet. Oh, Anna, there was a story about what was your story about? Do you mind just giving people a little brief summary of your story?
I will. Can I just jump on what you said before?
Yeah.
And that is that years and years and years ago, I did the Humber program where you work one-on-one.
Yep.
And I worked with Richard Scrimger, and I'll never forget sending him a draft of what I thought was a fabulous draft for a young adult novel. And I was living in Europe at the time, and it came back and I burst out crying. I mean, I cried, I swore, I said it was a waste of money. Who did he think he was? I went on and on and on. And then everything changed. And I realized this was probably the first most valuable gift that I got with regards to writing. And that was this honest feedback about what to do. Right. So I just wanted to reiterate.
Super. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, no, that's the perfect.
Right. So my story is, it's a story that I've written many, many times about one of my grandmothers. But it's about a moment in time when I chose to ignore her despite everything that I knew about her and what a fabulous person she was. And it's also a story about unconditional love and how the present day narrator recognizes that at the end.
Okay, beautiful.
Hi,
Thank
can
you.
you hear me? Sorry.
Yes, you're back, but I don't see you anywhere. Okay, here you are. Okay, super.
Okay.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you.
Crazy thunder and lightning storm.
Yeah.
And all the power went out. So I frantically, I called you, Alice.
Oh,
Oh my gosh. I hope that doesn't happen again.
you're back.
It's so loud. It's so incredibly loud here. Sorry about that. I didn't.
Fine. That's fine. We filled very nicely. Anna stepped in and we had a little chat. So.
Okay. 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 So where are we?
We were on the beginning of number 2.
Okay.
Real number 2.
Okay, great. Okay. I'll call this, this isn't a story. So what? So what? This isn't a story. Sometimes someone will have a really good story, but there's no self-reflection or contemplation. So memoir isn't just about recording events of what happened back at a certain time in your life. It's also how now you look back on that time how do you make sense of it? It has to mean something. It has to have a narrative arc. It has to be multi-layered. So sometimes someone might have a great story, but I think this is just an anecdote. So if you're stuck trying to figure out how to deepen your story, think what was going on with you at the time? What were you trying to figure out? What were you trying to work out in your life? Was there a struggle? So I just did an edit for someone submitting to the Amy Awards, and the story was full of incredibly rich, vivid details, bringing me right back to the era of this woman's childhood. She did a fantastic job with that. She had really mastered show, don't tell. However, the way she had written it, it was really mainly an anecdote, something funny that had happened in her family. But as I was reading along, I kept hoping, wow, I really hope there's another layer to this. It's so well written, but it's really just this simple story about a trip. I'll say to a dentist. It wasn't actually a dentist, but it was something kind of similar. And I could see hints of things going on in the background that weren't
Uh-oh.
about the relationship between the parents. And she was getting close to bringing that out, but the last paragraph turned out, it's sort of turned it all back into this funny, lighthearted, anecdotal story about this trip to the dentist, and it didn't land right. So in my feedback, I said there was obviously a lot going on between your parents that I'm really curious about. And this obviously affected you as a child. So do you want to expand on that? And make it more about yourself rather than your parents. Or bring out that conflict more. And anyway, she took that and ran with it. And what she submitted the second time was so much more powerful. She changed the entire ending, and it really landed. It was no longer just an anecdote. It was a full story with an arc that was quite powerful. So I'm really glad that it's just an example of an editor
Yeah,
or someone
right.
else having a second set of eyes. This rain is so loud. I feel that I'm yelling, but I guess I just keep going.
We can't hear it. The sound is fine here.
Okay. Another thing you might ask yourself is, was there a quest? So a memoir or a personal essay can be richer when there's a quest involved, not just an external quest, but an internal one, something that you were looking to change or to find within yourself, to get over a divorce or a sickness or a death, or to find your younger, more free-spirited self, for example. So when you critique your own stories, ask, so what? Why should the reader care about this? What's in it for the reader? What does it really mean? How can what happened to me radiate out into the world? Yeah, layers make the readers care. So when when you're reading over your story, ask, so what else was going on in my life? I have another example. Actually, I got a story. A woman wrote the story about this car accident, and she kind of went step by step through this whole accident, and it was quite involved about everything that she remembers. She really slowed it down in time, which was great, with a lot of details. But still, it didn't have another layer to it. It was just the story of the car accident. So I asked her what was going on in her life at the time of the car accident. And she happened to tell me that her marriage was falling apart at the time of this accident. And she didn't feel like herself. And that's in fact why she was in this accident, because she was so distracted. So I suggested she try putting those two things together, the story of her marriage falling apart along with the accident. And when she tried that, suddenly her story had that missing piece, that layer, and it was so much richer. So, okay, so that was number 2.
Okay.
I'm on to 3, critical moments. This is kind of a short one, but it's important. And I just alluded to it. So, critical moments, word count dictates your pacing. So if you want your reader to really pay attention to a moment, write more about it, more description, more dialogue, more internal processing, make the reader sit in those moments. So spin that car crash out over several paragraphs because that's how the car crash would have really felt to you. If you're writing about the birth of your child and it's central to the story, spin that out in detail. The groaning, the pain, the look on your partner's face, if your partner was there, the weird silence, and then the sudden noise that fills the air after the baby is born. So yeah, so that's a short one, but it's really important. Sometimes people just sort of quickly roll over something, and I'm thinking, wait a minute, that was a big central part of the story, and there wasn't nearly enough detail. So I want more detail. Number 4, the second to last one, is punctuation. It's so much easier when I don't have to spend time correcting people's punctuation, grammar errors, run-on sentences, paragraph issues. When all that clutter isn't there, I see the writing so much better and see what needs to be done to improve the story. If a piece of writing is full of errors, it's actually really hard for me to see anything else because I'm just so lost in the thicket of weeds. I want to see the beautiful, clear prose instead of all the punctuation errors. So sometimes people wonder if they need to send something to an editor before submitting to a contest. If it's not an editor, please get several people to read it first. People who know punctuation inside and out. As Alison has, I've been a judge in literary contests, and usually if the very first thing we see, if you see any punctuation errors, usually you just toss it out and you don't even read further into that story. So it has to be clean.
Yeah, and that's sorry, just to support that. That's not being harsh. It's that when you're sitting with 250 stories,
Right.
I mean, you just can't spend, and you've got to sort through and find the top 10. You know, when in the first paragraph, the person hasn't even taken the time and made the effort to say
Right.
something that's readable. It's a bit like I compare it to someone playing, trying to play you a violin that hasn't been properly tuned. I mean, all you can hear is the bad tuning. You just sort of, it doesn't matter how much music they have in them and want to get out. If you're stuck with the very technical aspects are going to trip everything up. So, just do yourself the favor, as Lori said, at the very least, especially if English is not your first language, or if this is, if you're coming to writing without much experience in, grammar and punctuation, there are apps that can help you, but I think people, I'm still not convinced by AI at all. In fact, if anything, I think I keep pushing further and further away from it. But yes, a good friend. Okay, thanks, Lori. Sorry to interrupt.
Oh my gosh. Speaking of AI, I've seen the worst writing from AI. If I,
Oh, have I? Oh yeah, terrifyingly bad. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
full of cliches and just,
Exactly. Well, they're
oh,
harvesting. They're harvesting and putting together from what they're culling from the internet, which of course, so everything they say has been said before. That's
right.
critical to understand. They cannot be original because they're only able to draw on what they're being fed. So your advantage as a human being is that you're going to say it the way that no one else anywhere has said it before. Okay.
Right. Yeah. Okay. I see the common errors I see are run-on sentences, not understanding the difference between its, IT apostrophe S, and ITS. Um, Pronouns often get mixed up. She gave the present to John and I.
Oh,
That's incorrect. Things like that. Um, Yeah, there's just some. Oh, actually, some people often write sentences that are far too long, and it's so much better. Short sentences are usually better than long ones. You can mix up the length, sometimes a short sentence followed by a long sentence, and kind of mix it up. So the rhythm, if you read it out loud to yourself, you get the rhythm of it, and you don't all want all short sentences and it's too choppy, but you don't want all these long sentences either. Um,
uh-oh.
you have to think, what am I really trying to say here? Is it clear? Okay, finally, sticking to your container or your theme. Now, I know you talk about that a lot, but I know a lot of people, they go off on these tangents and down these rabbit trails that have nothing to do with the main story. So a lot of times I think, why is this here? This doesn't have anything to do with what you're talking about. Can you bring it back? Focus, bring it back to, bring it back to your container. Do you still call it the container? I love that.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Especially
overall,
as a word piece too. There's not a lot of time to go off into territory that's irrelevant. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's important to avoid cliches like the plague. Go through your work with with your cliche meter set on high. Get rid of all your cliches. Um, Overall, editors can give you that second set of eyes, and mostly an editor will be honest with you, unlike your friends or your mother who will tell you everything you write is beautiful. Or maybe she won't do that. Maybe she'll be too critical, but so often someone will submit something and she'll say, "Oh, my friends just love this." And they didn't see anything wrong with it, and I get it and I see a lot wrong with it. So editors will use that critical eye to help you make your work the best it can be. And I think Anna mentioned that.
Yeah, well,
And
Hannah and Jane
yeah,
both. Yeah.
yeah. Okay, I think those are the main things I want
Okay,
to talk
super.
about.
Thank you, Lori. So I would love to just leave time. We're right approaching the hour, so we're pretty good as far as timing goes, but I'm also happy to answer some questions. So the first question was answered. Yeah, so someone asked, do you have a list of editors we can contact? So we do have, if you go in your bonus offerings course on your dashboard, you will see something called Working with an Editor. And that will be a portal to, so what we offer, I mean, this is, you're welcome. I mean, I'm not, this is an overview of what working with an editor can be. You may know editors on your own. We can give you options for how to find an editor, but I can also say we've also, narrowed that down for people who just want to know, I want a trusted editor. If you go to that bonus offerings course and then look for working with an editor, you will find a button that will take you to the page that we've set up this. Lori does a two-stage editorial process. So you submit to her, she will do a substantive edit, or a more sort of higher view edit. So looking at structure and arc and so on. And then you can work on that and resubmit it after you've had some time to work on her initial comments, and then she'll tidy it up and get it ready for submission. So a more close view, so the copy editing and proofreading that you would need. And in addition, if there's anything that's still standing out, she can just mark it up, so it's something that you can consider. So that is a two-stage edit. I mean, that's something that we just came up with, and we've been offering that for, well, yeah, 3 or 4 years of the Amy Award, because one edit can be helpful, but it can really be helpful to get that second eye, because especially if you've rewritten it or added things, just to get someone to make sure it's clean to submit. So that's an option. If you'd rather look for it, I can give you the name of a website that has a whole sea of editors. I can't recommend any particular editor, obviously, but this is a data bank of literally thousands and thousands of editors. I just dropped it into the chat. It's called readsy.com. And you may find, you'll find people of all different price ranges. Lori is, I would say, very reasonable for this two-stage edit, or this two-phase edit. It's a very reasonable offer, and from someone who's very experienced, but you are, that is also a recommendation. Okay, is there a contest for first-time writers? Well, this is, I mean, a lot of the people who submit to the Amy Award are first-time writers. They're people who've never submitted before. I created the contest really thinking that it would be an in-house contest for Memoir Writing Inc. students, and then the CBC picked up on it because of Amy's story, and they shared it on their website, and it just went, just sort of went ka-chung, ka-chung, and now it's shared on different American websites and Australian websites. So we get submissions from all over the place, but we do definitely get first-time submissions. And someone, I think the winner last year she calls herself a beginning writer. She does not consider herself a professional or seasoned or anything. You just never know. You never know. And as I said, contests are imperfect. There are no winners and losers in art. It is of course subjective. A different judge, as Jane and Anna found, a different set of readers will pull different stories as the ones that they feel are the ones to move on, which doesn't mean contests are a disaster and you should never submit to them. What it does mean is contests are imperfect, and the reason to enter a contest is not to win, but the reason to submit to a contest is to submit to the contest. What I mean by that is writers need deadlines. We work very well to a deadline. And when you are about to submit when you're about to press submit, you will read your piece and see things that you will not have seen if you're just writing it for yourself with no deadline and no one's ever going to look at this. Often in the last sort of 10 hours before submitting to a contest, writers find they're doing 10 different drafts of the story because suddenly it's like we just have these spotlights on. When we're imagining someone else reading it, we begin to see things that we didn't before. And it's something to aim for as I think it is a great accomplishment just to submit to a contest. And, as both Jane and Anna said, they just threw it in there. They didn't wait and check every day, are the results in yet? Like, just submit it and let it go. And who knows what's going to happen? You've already, it sounds trite, but you've already won something by submitting it. You've won the accomplishment of getting a piece submitted and put out into the world. Bravo to you. It's courageous. And the next time you do it, it'll be easier. It gets easier and easier each time. Okay, any suggestions about how to find an editor and or group? Okay, so we've done that. You can contact Lori. We also have now, one thing I will say is that Lori got so busy just before the deadline last year that she wrote to me and said, look, my eyes are hurting. Like, you have to turn off the app. I can't do this anymore. So she has asked people, if you are going to, because it is a two-stage process, ideally you're allowing lots of time between the first edit and the second, or at least a few days, ideally a week, I'd say. So the sooner, please don't, we will, if we're just overloaded with submissions. We do have some other editors standing by this year just because Lori got overwhelmed last year. So the more advance notice you can give, the better. And then as far as a writing group, if you're in the Facebook group, or you will, if you just completed the course, be invited to the Alumni Cafe. There are writing groups that form just before the Amy Award, and people are reading each other's stuff. And that, of course, you can do that. They're all working on 2,000 word pieces, all looking toward the deadline, all looking for honest feedback about the writing. And so that's a great place. You can just go on there and say, hey, does anyone want to, read each other's work in the weeks leading up to the Amy Award? It's a great place to start. Okay, how much show not tell is too much? Lori, I'm going to leave that to you.
Okay.
Is there such a thing as too much?
Yeah, I think there is too much show. There can be too much show. It all depends on the story. Is the question, what was the question? Is there too much showing?
Yeah, I guess the question was a good one, is how much is too much? Can you overdo it? And like anything, well, I guess my answer would be, and I'm curious, I'm happy to be contradicted, and feel free to chime in, Anna and Jane as well. I don't think I can pin all of us, but I can try. Let me see. Well, is everyone pinned? I think a story could easily be all showing, and it could work just as, but just as with anything, a great thing can also be overdone, and it is about finding balance. But I don't think there's a recipe or a rhythm. Do either of you, Jane or Anna or Lori, have anything to?
Sometimes there is too much description, and I just want to get on with the story. Like maybe they're describing the surroundings. It's very important to describe, especially during conversation and dialogue. Conversation doesn't happen in a vacuum. We want to know what's kind of going on in the room, and things they might be doing with their body, or different kinds of gestures, or that sort of thing. But sometimes people are describing all the things going on in nature, and it gets bogged down, and so that is something. It's a little bit different than your question, but sometimes you just want to get on with the story, with
Jane,
the
do you
plot.
have anything to add there?
I think that you almost, when you've worked on something, I think you almost have your own idea of where it might be too much
Mm.
and where you've perhaps gone down a bit of a rabbit hole. And you can pull yourself back out of it. But the longer that you work on a piece, the more you can't see the forest for the trees, and that's why it's so important to have somebody that you trust that says, "Oh, where are you going with that one? That doesn't have any. There's no reason for you to go there. Get rid of it." So that's why I trust my editors every time.
Anna, do you have anything to add to that?
Oh boy, I'm thinking, I might draw on something that Lori said about the importance of sensory details. And that is, so I love word limits. And the reason I love word limits is because it forces me to be precise and deliberate about what I want the reader to know.
Mm.
So if I only have like 50 words in which that I can use to give the reader a sense of what kind of a person my grandfather was, for example, I have to work very hard at what it is that I want the reader to see, for example, right? And then I'll focus in, right, on the fact that his fingernails might always have been dirty, that he could never get the stains out from his shirt, that he left his dentures in a glass every night beside the sourdough starter, whatever it was. So
Yeah, that's great. I mean, yeah, I appreciate that. And it's another reason why entering a contest where you have to keep it 2,000 words is just a great exercise in and of itself. What do you do when you only have 2,000 words to tell a story that maybe you could tell in 20,000?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah,
Okay.
I would jump off what you said earlier about entering contests. I don't like to, but I do because it makes me work harder. It makes me work harder with regards to the craft. And so thank you actually for all of this.
You're very welcome.
Yeah, thank you for all of this. Thank you for the opportunity of entering the contest. And yeah.
You're welcome. You're so welcome. Yeah, it's become such a rewarding. I wasn't sure it was going to be an annual thing. I thought it might be a one-off, but I just love it so much. I mean, every year I also think, okay, this is going to be my last year. My least favorite day of this contest is releasing the long list because I know I'm going to make 30 people really happy and 350 really sad. And every year I think, enough, I'm not doing this again. But then I keep doing it. Okay.
Keep going.
Okay, another question for number 2. So for point number 2, which was, what's the real story? Someone asked, is this the skywriting or the goal of the story? What I call in memoir writing the skywriting. And yeah, I mean, that is the question. What is this actually about? It's not just the events on the ground. What is this actually? What's the meaning behind it? What's the larger meaning? Yes, they are the same thing. Okay, how much does it cost to hire an editor? Yeah, all of that is on that. If you follow that, if you go to your, it's different in different currencies, of course. So you'll just go to the page, go to your dashboard, bonus offerings, working with an editor, and you'll find that there. And then in Reads, you'll find such a range. I mean, it's such a range. So there's no one price, unfortunately. Okay, when is Lori's cutoff for editing a piece for the Amy Award submission? The cutoff is probably the week before the contest deadline, no? At the very latest.
I would say, yeah.
Very.
Although I remember last year a few people were it was like the day before.
Yeah, that was so hard. So ideally, you're starting the process at the very latest 2 weeks before, but 2 weeks before the deadline. Okay. Have you noticed any patterns in the length of pieces that tend to do well or get submitted? No, absolutely not. I mean, we had one winner that was barely over 1,000 words one year. And we've had lots of shortlisted pieces that have been quite short, and then some that are, 1,999 words. Length really, it's so arbitrary, really. So yeah, shorter doesn't mean it's not, that it has anything going against it. Okay, bonus offerings isn't on my dashboard any longer. Okay. This has been a problem. I don't know what's happening, but bonus offerings seems to be disappearing. So I will write a note to Sonia, the great Sonia Wilson, who will ensure that everybody has bonus offerings on their dashboard. So if it's not there now, it will be by tomorrow. Okay, can you submit a piece to two different publishers or a contest and wait and see if it's been submitted? No, if you are submitting to a contest, or a publication, it depends. Different publications have different rules. A lot say they don't like what they call simultaneous submissions. So when you're sending out a piece to multiple places, publishers do not like that. Magazines do not like it, and it's generally not even permitted in contests. The reason is we spend a lot of time going through these submissions. And so if a magazine, for example, has you being read by one reader and then a second set of readers, and now they're looking to possibly publish your piece, and then by the time they get in touch with you, you say, oh, actually, just last week, someone else bought it, you're going to get blacklisted. That is not okay to do. So unless the magazine says we accept simultaneous submissions, it's generally, I think, good practice to only submit in one place at a time. Now it's different when your book is being submitted to publishers, you can do that. That's a different stage, but we're not talking about books here. Okay. Can we submit more than one piece? Yes, submit as many as you want. At worst, you've made a donation to ovarian cancer research. There's nothing lost in submitting multiple times. Okay. Leslie wants to ask a question, but she can't use the Q&A button. Leslie. Okay, where is Leslie? Let me see if I can just unmute you. Leslie's iPhone. Okay, feel free to ask your question, Leslie.
Where is she?
She has remembered some of the process we worked through together in the editing process for my story that she'd like to share. Oh, that would be amazing. Okay, Leslie, if you're able to, I can ask you to unmute. That would be really, really interesting. She might be having trouble unmuting.
There we go. Can you hear me?
Yeah, hi
Yeah,
Leslie.
Oh,
Oh,
great.
nice
Hi,
to
guys.
see you. Wait, let me see if I can pin you too. Okay, there you are.
All right, all right. So what I remembered was that, Jane, we spent a lot of time talking about setting up the lilacs in the beginning, the world that the children were in.
Yeah.
Mm.
And you had it all there, but we spent a lot of time organizing it.
Wow. So organize in the beginning, the setup of the story.
Yeah, because the kids were playing house when the police car arrived.
Mm.
And so we thought that it needed to be a little bigger.
Lovely.
And we changed the tense from past tense to present tense because I love present tense.
Yeah.
I bullied Jane into trying it out, so she did, and she liked it. And then that opened up all kinds of tricky things with the writing.
Yeah.
When you write it in the present tense, it becomes sometimes quite complicated to figure out what a memory should be, whether it stays in the present or it stays in the past.
Yeah.
And then we had a really good time with the ending.
Yeah, we did.
It was hard, but it was really felt like good work we were right down to picking particular words.
Yeah.
Yeah, the best word. Is that the word we want to use? What is the word you want there?
Oh, I love that, Leslie.
Yeah, it was really fun. I loved doing it.
Great.
And I love that you were doing it. Thanks, Les, because the question at the moment, Alison, was like, oh shit, I can't remember. And then Leslie started messaging me. She came on late because she had a medical appointment and started saying, yeah, but what about the present tense and all these things? And it all came rushing back. So
No,
yeah,
that's so helpful. It's so helpful. I mean, as I always bang on and on about specificity, in you know how important specificity is to writing.
Mhm.
But in this case, that's also specificity. It's so helpful to know exactly, yeah, what were the things, choosing the right word for the ending, choosing the tense, making sure we had this sensory experience at the beginning, which just because I always tell people setting is not about describing a place.
No.
Are different for different people. Setting is about how does it feel to be there.
Mhm. Thanks. Yeah.
Thanks, Leslie. That was really
Oh, you're
helpful.
welcome. It was fun. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, good. Thanks. Okay. I believe that is the last question. Yes, it is. Okay, terrific, because we're over time. There's one story. Can I resubmit a story I submitted to a past Amy Award after working with Lori? Yes. You can submit a story that you've resubmitted. As we've heard, both of these people had submitted their stories in previous years, and both Jane and Anna then, you know, in Jane's case, didn't work on the piece much, just resubmitted with, you know, a new Hail Mary and hope. And Anna worked on the piece and resubmitted a slightly or maybe a drastically altered version of the piece. So yes, you can absolutely just yeah, resubmit.
And just as a quick aside, it was Leslie that gave me the advice. Well, look, there will be different readers. There will be a different judge. Throw it in there again. So thank you, Leslie.
You're
I
welcome.
wouldn't do.
I thought
wouldn't
it was a
have.
winner. Yeah.
Yeah, you
And-
were right. Okay, that's
Yeah.
so terrific. Okay, well, thank you, everyone. I hope you have found this helpful and inspiring. And I hope, please, yeah, feel free to submit to the Amy Award. And the more, you know, feel free to also spread the word. If you're on social media, if you have a newsletter, just let people know that the contest exists. It's really wonderful to just pull in new writing and get the, you know, the more the contest is, the more popular it is, the better the contest too, because we just get interesting writing being submitted. Okay, thank you all so much. Lori, Jane, Anna, I'm so grateful that you're here with me. You've brought all these writers so much yeah, wisdom and inspiration and ideas. Thank you all. Okay, take care, everyone, and we'll do something soon. This is the last Momentum event, the last cohort event, where all the Canadians in the room are exhausted. We're all going to go to bed, but come the spring and summer, we'll have more on offer for you. Okay, take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye.
Allison. So
Bye.
much
Thank
fun.
you.
Thank
Allison.
you.
Bye.
Bye.